Time is racing on. I would be remiss if I did not open this conversation reminding you we still have early bird tickets for our global conference on sale. We don't know when we're going to cancel the early bird. We offer the pricing at below our costs thanks to the gracious sponsors that we have. And depending right now, we're a little upside down on the ticket cost. And so, assuming we get some more sponsorships, we may be able to keep that rate until the end. If we don't get sponsorships, we will likely raise those prices. So, you're going to want to join us. We were there last week doing a walkthrough. The space is lovely, the hotel is incredible. And do I even have to mention that beach and that emerald water? It's unbelievable. So hopefully we will see many, many of you there. We have a lot of questions. And so I am going to start jumping right into these questions. Otherwise, we don't have a prayer of getting to them all. In some cases, multiple people asked very similar questions. So I sort of lumped them together in order to get through it more efficiently. So we do have a question about sponsorships. Interested in sponsorship chair connections, any ideas of what has worked for other chapters? Every chapter wrestles with sponsorships. Now, I'm going to make the assumption in this case that when we talk about sponsorship, we're talking about money that comes or in-kind benefits that come into your chapter that help you cover your operating, help you do the work that you're doing. Sometimes sponsorships can also mean a scholarship or an opportunity for a member who otherwise couldn't join to be funded. Those are two different things, and but often referred to in a very similar way. So when we talk about the answer to this question, it's looking for community supporters. So in all kinds of fundraising, you always want to begin from the top down and the inside out. So what do I mean by that? If your leadership team has connections to organizations, whether they're family foundations, community foundation, donor advised fund, families, companies, wherever you at the top of the house have your closest connections, you want to ask them first if any of your spouses or relatives are involved in an organization that might be incented to support your work. Very often, when organizations in your community understand not just what you're doing, but who you're doing it with and for, we become a very attractive target to local entrepreneurs, very small businesses, up to very large companies. Why? At a minimum, we're going to have 100+ women who have the disposable income to donate $1,000 year over year, which means that we are likely a good consumer of whatever it is they may sell. The other reason they might do it is that they are in the kind of business that serves women. It could be lawyers, it could be accountants, it could be any kind of business. Women are the primary buyer of all things healthcare, financial services, etc. And though that trend is only growing over time, but you want to start where you have a connection. So, to give you an example, in the early days of Cincinnati, we were getting ready for our first annual awards celebration, and we had negotiated everything we could because you start there, right? With the vendors that you're dealing with, you negotiate really hard so that you get a discount, which is some sort of an in-kind donation. And we were charging our members to come. We wanted to keep that as low as possible, but we also wanted it to be a lovely event. So I went to my local florist. Now, I had done business with this florist, but I mean, not like huge business, but I was a customer. I explained what we were doing. And the answer that he gave is interesting. And I always give this example because it was a pair who run this floral shop. And one of the men said, "We will gladly give you flowers for your entire event on every table as long as we have creative license to sort of give you what we want to give you." And I asked why, and he said anybody can do a bowl full of pink and yellow flowers. He said we really want to showcase our talent, and let me tell you, every table had very different arrangements. Each one was spectacular, very contemporary, sort of Asian influence to very traditional to everything in between, tall, short, long, wide. We had them on stage, we had them at our other tables. It really was a showcase, and every flower arrangement had their business card and they gifted all the flowers. So someone from the table who had, a blue dot under their plate would be able to take home those flowers. So they did that year over year over year for a long time. And so it is a wonderful opportunity for the printers in your world. We still need things printed, and the women in your membership are probably going to have retirement parties, graduation parties, birthday parties, weddings, who knows what, but you need a good printer. Sometimes we've got to explain the benefit, and other times they understand and they will seek you out. Um, my my advice is also the word sponsorship. It connotes an exchange of value. I give you this, and in exchange, you give me visibility. My first approach when I'm looking to fund the administrative expenses of a local chapter is I want to look for friends. Friends will support you without expecting anything in return. Friends can be the significant others of women in your membership. Friends can be companies. Friends can be your members. Your members can be a friend and be a member. Friends can be anonymous, but you really want to attract and recognize your friends first. Uh, the other piece for and that should be ongoing when you're recruiting. And I know Cleveland is a brand new chapter, but we've got other brand new chapters who are launching at the same time. And when you're asking someone to be a member, if they say, "Gosh, I don't know if I can afford it this year," and that is true for all the chapters, you might say, "Well, gosh, I can't imagine moving forward without you. Would you like to be a friend? You can donate any amount and we'll recognize you, and you can still be a part of this giving year, or you can be a part of our lunch," or whatever the case. It should be what you say when someone says they are not able to afford it. And so those things are really important. You want your friends first and foremost. After that, go for in kind because you really need those things. And then in most communities, you've got either community foundations, United Ways, corporate foundations who will almost always give you a capacity building grant. So get to know the funders in your region and get to know what they like to fund. If you've got a tech firm, they may only want to fund something tech related. Well, gosh, most chapters could certainly use a little help covering some of the technology expenses that come along. So be strategic in your ask. Ask by the person highest in your organization to the closest tie that you have within that potential funder or sponsor. And then don't give up a lot of visibility to these sponsors. Don't let them talk at your annual meeting. Don't limit their ability, because simply being listed on your website, being thanked in your PowerPoint, and et cetera, should be enough. I do know that different communities, it can be much harder to get this kind of funding, and in your heads you're saying, well, we have to offer those things or we won't get them. I recognize that some communities are like that. I'm sort of giving you the best case scenario, knowing that who you know and how willing they are to support you could change. um and does anybody have anything they want to add there? All right, I'm going to keep moving because we have a lot of these questions. Another question was entertainment ideas for annual events. Now, annual the only I don't know the crux of this question, meaning which event or events you may have had in mind, but oftentimes the only events where we have entertainment are your annual awards ceremony. Sometimes it's also the big reveal. It's rarely at Meet the Finalists, but it could be. You want ultimately any entertainment that you choose, you want it to seamlessly meld into your program. And so I have been to annual meetings where the entertainment was a children's orchestra that we had funded the equipment, the musical instruments for. We had
Mm,
funded a bus for, and so we got this sweet, amazing group of very young kids performing beautifully, both in the background of the meet and mingle part of the program, and then as we shifted from the voting into where the meals and everything would go. And it was lovely. People like to see that. So if you funded anyone, they're a great somebody to bring in. I've definitely seen the big reveal bring the local high school marching band, so that when the drum roll happens, they actually have a drum corps, and they come out from behind the curtain and march through. The energy of the room goes up. We've had a young girl, who had written a poem about Impact 100 as a recipient. She performed at an event, and there was not a dry eye in the room. In other words, align your entertainment with your mission. And if you don't have grantees like that, or you don't have the venue that would support that, don't worry. Sometimes the best entertainment is a repeating PowerPoint slide carousel of pictures of your members at your events, at a site visit, in their committee rooms, wherever it might be. If you've been around for a while, over the years, you can have, and people love to look for themselves and look for their friends in those pictures. So definitely don't overthink it. Um, you want to be mindful, however, that if one of your grantees who is a musical has some sort of musical element, if they can reapply this year, don't feature them, because it will no longer be a level playing field. So if they were just awarded the grant, or they're not applying, or there any other extenuating information, but before you do anything that involves a grantee, make sure that you're not giving them a leg up against the competition by showing up at an event that's going to be very emotional for your members, and therefore could sway them toward that particular nonprofit. Um, there is a I had a question about, and a lot of these first couple are coming both from April and today. The level of notification to applicants not making it to the finals. And then a related question, handling the finalists at the award ceremony itself. So I would say it's very customary that as your focus area committees start doing their work, that as you eliminate a nonprofit from consideration, they should get a very polite, encouraging decline letter. Thank you so much. We had an abundance of amazing applicants, and this year you didn't make it to the top, didn't make it to the top. Please reapply. We're so grateful for your impact. We don't typically give a lot of reason why, and that's a whole conversation for us to have. If that's a conversation, we should probably set up a separate call to talk about what you should or shouldn't tell them. But primarily, you don't give them a lot of information unless they didn't meet your eligibility requirements. If they didn't have 3 years of audited financials, if they didn't give you all the documents you asked for, then you need to say, I'm sorry, but we could not move your application forward because it was lacking X or it didn't meet Y eligibility criteria. Because I think it's important for people to know that. And then I think it's equally important that you hold your ground. If they say, oh, I'll get it to you, it must have been a glitch in the system, you likely want to say, please let us know next year if you have a problem, but it wouldn't be fair to allow you to submit later. Another question. Does your chapter do site visits for all grant applicants, or do you narrow it down in some way? As far as I know, there's only one chapter, but this was not asked by Pensacola, so there might be more than one chapter that is doing these massive site visits. Pensacola site visits every nonprofit to start their grant review process. In Pensacola, it is a cultural thing. Apparently, the nonprofits all love it, and the members all love it. And you don't have to serve on a focus area committee to tour all these nonprofits, to do all of these site visits. I would say that is a very rare circumstance. Typically, we get the applications, they're dispersed among your focus area committees. And as your committees start their review, they begin to eliminate certain nonprofits. And as I said, those nonprofits know that they won't be moving along. When you get down to 3 to 5, that your committee, your focus area committee, so this is times 5, it's for each one of your focus area committees. When you get to 3 to 5 applicants and you're like, these are rising to the top. At that point, you have the financial review team review those 5. In other words, that's the first time our financial experts really take a deep dive into the numbers, because the idea is if they don't pass muster with your financial review, you don't want to waste their time or get their hopes up to do a site visit. If they're on the fence, sometimes your financial review person will accompany you on that site visit to specifically ask any questions that they might have right then and there. And so ultimately, each focus area is site visiting 3 to no more than 5 nonprofits in order to determine their one finalist. Once you get up to 500 members, you need 2 finalists in every category. And so you really want at least 5 so that 2 can rise to the top. I'm going to pause because I've answered a few questions in a row. Anybody have thoughts, questions, or comments on the questions we've covered so far? Okay, awesome. So here is a really interesting question. What would you say is the single most critical role a board should focus on to truly drive lasting impact? Okay, that is the $1,000,000 question or multi-million dollar question. The most critical thing that the board should focus on is communicating how the model works consistently and repeatedly. There is an old saying that goes something like the biggest mistake in communication is assuming that what you've said has been understood. I will tell you that the the chapters who stay the course, follow the model, don't waffle. Year one, they're this. By the time year four comes, they're doing something else. By year 12, they're doing something else. The more you can consistently share how the model works, and more importantly, why it works, the better. That's the most important thing you can do. But I have to say, the bigger question is what is the most important thing your board should be? And because success rises and falls on your leadership. So sorry, y'all, and congratulations, you all, because your success really does rise and fall on having a strong, working, diverse board where we're all rowing that boat in the same direction. We're all singing from the same song sheet. No one is there in name only, and no one is what we refer to as phoning it in or retired on the job. It, as you all know very well, the Impact 100 model is simple and powerful, but executing it well is not easy. And the more you have the right people in the right seats on your board and you build a culture of respect, of mutual accountability, and of continually working to make your chapter better, stronger, more reflective of the community. That's really the thing. Um, I've been to many, many chapters and I've met with leaders who have tears in their eyes saying, I've term limited out of board membership, and this has been the best thing that's ever happened to me. I wish I could stay. These are now my friends. This is my purpose. And they're tearful alongside someone who's getting ready to start their board role, and they're tearful saying, I can't believe they asked me to be a part of this team. I've dreamt of this, and I'm so honored to be included. It's that board culture that will assure your success into the future, your succession when the time is right for you to roll off. And that means you're always scouting new leaders. You're always welcoming those conversations, and you are being very selective of who you admit onto your leadership team. And those of you who are thinking to yourself, well, wait a minute, I've reached the end of my rope. We have to get someone to replace me, or we have to get someone to take on this role. Any warm body will do. Trust me, making a difficult decision by including someone who your gut instinct tells you is not going to be a culture fit, you will pay for so many times over. It's worth it to keep looking, keep asking, and bring people in earlier rather than later. If you're getting ready to roll off the board in 18 months, identify your possible successor and bring her in as your vice chair or your co chair. Let her see what you do. Let you see how she operates. Hopefully, when your time comes to roll off, she will very easily slip into your spot. So you should be an active nominating committee, filling an active bench. For those of you who know about my love of the spreadsheet where everyone on your board lists all the people that they think could become members or leaders, that is valuable. So when a new board member comes in, ask her to fill that out too, so that you will have hopefully some new candidates for your consideration as you move ahead. Any other nominating board thoughts to add? Okay, I'm going to keep rolling. How do other chapters manage record retention? So that's a great question. Record retention, most chapters have some sort of a cloud-based system, but the bottom line is you need redundancy. So you might have an external hard drive that you save everything onto an external hard drive that you want to update frequently on a regular cadence. You also want something cloud-based, whether it's Google Drive or SharePoint, OneDrive, if you're a Microsoft user. You want redundancy so that if one system fails, you will have the other. You also want more than one person to have access and be very clear on who and how they can edit. So put protections in place that reflect your policies as well as your requirements. Really protecting your data is one of the most important things you can do. You certainly have packages, whether it's your CRM system that you use or your grant management system that you use, that can help you organize those records and make sure that you've got a way that you can access them, but you want to back them up. Many chapters have a role that's either called database manager, is kind of the common vernacular. Sometimes that's the only role. They update all the databases. They give back up to perhaps the secretary, your board secretary, or your board president or vice president. Or the database manager sometimes will be the role of your membership recruiting chair or your grants liaison, or it could be also, of course, the secretary of your board. But it's definitely a question that you want to focus on. In the early days, every member filled out a handwritten membership form, and we literally had binders of them year over year. Fortunately, we don't have to worry about that anymore. But we do want to make sure that we're saving these things a number of ways. If it's an editable Word document or Excel sheet, saving it as a PDF when you're done adding to it for that season or year or time period is a really good help, so that you'd end up having it both ways. You'll have the PDF and you'll have the original Word or Excel document. But it's not complicated, but it is very important. Let's see. We have many more questions. Oh, someone asked a question. What are some good marketing ideas? I would say, again, communication, communication, communication. So your newsletter is your marketing. See if you can add the mailing list to all the nonprofits, to your list of prospective members, your current members, so that they know what's happening, keeping them informed through your written communication. I will say when it comes to newsletters, more is not always more. So we have definitely had chapters who heard feedback from their members. Oh, we don't hear from you enough. And they started increasing the frequency of their newsletters to have a significant number of unsubscribes come through. So you want to not communicate for communication's sake. You want to communicate with a message and something that you want them to know is also a team sport. Although almost every newsletter opens with a letter from your president, you really want your grants chair, your membership people, you want everyone to be contributing and even having your letter, your opening letter, move from the president to a different role during certain seasons might be something that could be very effective. You also, as far as marketing, if you live in a community with Lamar electronic billboards, you have the opportunity to use that for a week in most cases. And that is free of charge. When we think about marketing, you want to go from the lowest hanging fruit to the most difficult. So everybody would love to be on TV. They love to, that early morning show, that noon show, that 5 o'clock show. Just do a story about our impact chapter on the TV. That's the holy grail. But it's not easy to get to. And so you want to start where it's easy. Local radio. Your local talk radio hosts, they have to fill that time. And you want to find the radio show that does the feel good community stories. You may not listen to the station. It might not be your cup of tea. Maybe it's the music you don't like. Maybe they represent a view that you don't agree with. But Impact 100, we have everyone in the community is welcome to join. So the more you can get out in front on a local radio show, the more new people might hear the message that you have to say. And typically those radio DJs, they need good stories to tell. Same thing, take a look at your chambers of commerce, your Rotaries, your Kiwanis, your Junior League, your Elks Club. They're often looking for speakers. You might offer to give a speech about how you funded your first grant or how you've now given away more than $9 million in your community. You want to be able to offer up how to tell your story so that the audience will want to hear. You also are looking at community calendars, radio stations, TV stations, public and private chambers. They typically will have a community calendar. Figure out what their deadlines are and submit every one of your public events onto that community calendar. If you still have a local paper, write an op-ed, write a letter to the editor that describes why you're a member, or have someone else tell the story. Maybe tell the story of one of your grantees. When you get that kind of publicity, it dispels this idea that you have to know someone or you have to have a secret handshake to join your chapter. And so when you put up a billboard, when you put it on the community calendar, it dispels all that. Every time I travel and visit different chapters, inevitably I meet people. Now, often when I say, "What made you join?" they'll point to a person. Well, I did it because of that person. But it's remarkable how many people will say, "I was new in town. I read it in the paper and I just showed up and I didn't know it was their first meeting. And then I came to be on the founding board." These things happen all the time. And so you really want to keep marketing as much as you can. If you know me, you know I kind of like swag. So swag is also an advertisement. Workout shirts, if you go to a gym or if you walk the trails near your house or your neighborhood, wearing an Impact 100 branded shirt it starts conversations. For those of you who have neighborhoods and are not just high rise and cityscapes, putting that little yard sign, a proud member of Impact 100, so and so lives here. You start putting those around, and people will say, "What is that?" Same thing is true for a window cling for the back of your car. When we started this a million years ago, bumper stickers, magnetic bumper stickers was the thing. That was what got everybody involved. We also see license plate surrounds that give the information. So when you're stopped at a red light, somebody will do that. Oh, you ordered your car magnets. I love that. So there's no end to marketing ideas. Be aware of your community, show up where they show up. I will give you one kind of, I think, cool story, and it's possible. I think Sonoma, you may do this, but I know Sarasota does. They go to the local farmers market every week and they have a table. And I can't tell you, friends of mine from all kinds of other places who are vacationing in the Sarasota area, they'll send me a picture of the Sarasota Farmers Market with Impact 100 SRQ. And they're like, "This is so awesome. We need one where I live." I tell them they can join there, just like they can join beautiful Sonoma when they're traveling. But that is a great marketing because you want to be where women are anyway. And women are at farmers markets. So are men. So are people who own businesses. So are your potential sponsors. But it's a brilliant way to capture the attention of people who you might not otherwise know how to find. Um, any other comments on marketing? Okay. Has any chapters done a survey to try to figure out the primary reason why members don't renew? The answer to that is I believe that chapters they do a lot of surveys, some more than others, but broadly, chapters do some surveys. Surveys can be very misleading. You may not really get the answer that you're looking for. We did a research study that we're getting ready to repeat that's called Return on Impact. And that's when we measured why members join and what happens to them. We say at Impact 100, we inspire women and we transform communities. And so we did a validated research study. And part of what's included in that research happened to be a little bit of feedback, not a lot, a little bit of feedback about why people leave. And that sometimes they leave for legitimate economic reasons. Sometimes they leave because they didn't feel engaged. That right there is worth noting. We know that the model allows members to design their own experience. And so sometimes the experience they design is that they don't get involved, that they're not on a committee and they don't go to things. And then suddenly all they really know about what your chapter's doing is your newsletter or your social media, and they may not really even pay that much attention to that. And they sort of get to the point where they're like, I don't remember the last time I knew what was going on in this chapter. I think I will redeploy those funds elsewhere. Now, a couple of things. Sometimes women stop for an economic reason. Could be something good. I'm remodeling my kitchen. I can't do this right now. We always want to welcome them back. Lapsed memberships happen. No one should feel guilty or bad. You always want to make sure that you're continuing to remind them that they matter, that you need them. You would love to have them come back when things change. sometimes for those circumstances, you might say, well, look, if we had a sponsorship that could meet you halfway, would you renew your membership? They might say yes, they might say no, but if you've got that as an arrow in your quiver, it's worth asking. But the other thing that the research showed is that it only took one or two mission uh, engagements, mission moments that turned them from feeling disconnected to feeling engaged and a part of it. And so making making an extra effort to get them to one of your big 3 events, making sure that if they are opting out of, participating in an active way, that someone is personally reaching out, inviting them to coffee, not asking them to do anything, just asking them to sit and have a chat with someone who's involved. You want to be careful not to make it seem like you're trying to turn them from design your own experience to design it the way we want you to. But it needs to be done with finesse. But just going to the annual meeting, it's hard to feel disengaged. If you can get people to one event, it's your annual award celebration. It's also where you're going to pitch them to rejoin for the next year. And so the emotions are high. It's a big celebration. It's a big reveal is another one. The tricky part is the big reveal, you're announcing how many members. And if I've already opted out and now I go and I'm like, well, darn, that was a mistake. You can say you can pay ahead for next year's membership, but I'm not sure how many people will do that. And this is sort of connected with this idea of how do you make your regular renewed members feel seen and appreciated? So I'm going to say something that may or may not resonate with you, but everything, 90% of everything we do in Impact 100 today is electronic. I am a huge fan of handwritten notes. If you've got members, I love the description, the members that are the easy members. They're there, they get it. They're glad to be a member. You don't have to chase them down. They've been consistent. Even those who are, whether they're first year members, whether they're 20-year members, should probably come from the president, might also be signed by the whole board at a board meeting. Get batches of members that you're going to write a personal note to. You can have cards printed with the message and then have each person sign, or you can have your president handwrite the note. If anyone else is connected to this person, they can add their sentiments to it, or you can have everyone on the board and put it in the mail. Do something clever, like include a little handmade coupon that says, this is good for a free drink at the annual award celebration, or a free cup of coffee at the, at our farmer's market. Somebody's got background noise. But these are the creative ways that you keep them engaged, because we all know that every member does really matter. Now, we've covered most. I will say the one question that we haven't gotten into, and it was asked a number of different ways, and that is, in light of everything that's going on in Washington and different policies, different funding that isn't there for certain nonprofits, what are chapters doing? I would say universally, chapters are very sensitive to the lost funding. And in doing that, in some cases, they have raised an additional pool of money, a separate pool that has said, okay, chapter members, we know that these local organizations, and they're very specific, or this category of local organizations, have reported that they've lost X amount in funding. Um, if this is something we want to get along, contribute to, you might partner with your local community foundation. You might partner with a family foundation or a corporate foundation. You also might be an aggregator of information so that if you've got donors in your membership pool for whom resources are not a significant issue, let them know where the needs are. Be that connection, that introduction. We always talk about the impact of Impact 100, and that's the residual, the extra funding, the introductions, the connections that happen. And in this case, we're definitely seeing it. We do have chapters who are looking to perhaps more broadly take a look at applications that come in that might have some level of administrative operating expenses built in. If you don't typically fund that, you might in the focus area committees sort of make your decisions based on what the board decides to do. Most of all, we cannot pretend it's not happening. We also cannot resolve it from where we're sitting. And so we need to move ahead in a way that feels authentic, that feels true to who we are as an organization, and also that continues to support the community in any of the ways that we can. Now, I know that you all you may have some questions in the last 9 minutes of our time together. I have covered all the ones that are that have been submitted. I do know that Evelyn from Sacramento has something she wants to say, but before I turn it over to Evelyn, if any of y'all have a question, I want to give you the floor first, or a comment or a suggestion. Go ahead, Louise. You're muted, Louise. You want to unmute. There you go. Down at the bottom near your microphone.
Yes. Thank you. Want to be a good citizen before this. I know this is a moving target, but is there any plan at your level, Wendy, to apprise us of what other chapters are doing in response to the federal cutbacks? Because we want to get going on this because we make our announcements in early fall for the grant process. And I know during COVID, the start of COVID, some chapters moved to more mission-based funding. Is that something in the works, or what's your sense from your perspective?
It's interesting. It's very interesting. Chapters kind of develop their own personality is the best way for me to say that. So the tricky part is the sort of premise of Impact 100 is that we're making these grants that are transformational and sustainable. Yeah. And so from that standpoint, one of the things that I have been saying to chapters as I've met with them as it relates to just general grant practices is take a look at your policies and your eligibility. In the early days, we for example, and when I say we, I mean Cincinnati, but I mean every early chapter. They put things in their bylaws like we will not fund endowments, we will not fund operating. Now, I believe, and y'all are going to shake your head and say, that'll never happen. I believe that there might come a time when a chapter will fund an endowment, will fund 100,000 plus to an endowment. Is that today? I don't think so, but it could happen. We put a lot of those eligibility, I guess you might want to say, boundaries those curbs around, because we didn't know what our members would do. And so now we know that we don't have to put those boundaries, that there might come a time that your chapter might want to fund more operating than another chapter might want to fund. But those decisions are meant to be made first at your board level. My biggest caution, however, is that I would be very careful to not move to a fully, this can go to operating, use it however you want to, because we are not seeing staying power with members if they cannot see the transformation and the sustainability. So, in this climate, if, for example, and I'm just giving this as an example, if there's a local nonprofit that's lost funding and your membership decides that one of your big grants should go to help them and they fail, which nonprofits fail every day, you all. Part of the reason why we fund the way we fund is to be good stewards of our members' money. And we want to make sure that what we're funding sticks around. And so even during COVID, often there was like, if you had 230 members, you took that 30,000 and you put it into a COVID relief fund versus the 200,000. So there are ways that you at a local level can make those decisions, but I strongly encourage you to be very careful that your board has enough strong voices with different opinions around the table. Or you could find yourself in a position that may hurt you in the long run. Because it's like this push you, pull me of where do we go and how do we do it? And I believe now, for example, I know that the Seattle chapter, from the day they started, they give fully operational without a lot of expectation. It's the way they started. Who knows how they'll end up, but they started that way, which means every member who's ever joined knew that was what they were going to do.
Okay.
It's different with chapters that have been around. And I also want to remember that the big money, if you are watching, which I'm sure you are, I am watching, our billionaire friends, they're doubling down. And they, that kind of funder, they should be doubling down. They are stepping up. They are helping in significant ways. And so you just want to be careful of where we fit in the philanthropy ecosystem and stay true.
Mm-hmm. Okay. If I could for just 1 minute, we are toying with saying you can use the 100,000 to sustain a program that wouldn't be able to continue. And prior to that, just to put it out there, we've not
which I think makes sense. I think that makes sense. We're having, this is sort of at the other end of the spectrum, but we're having conversations with chapters who are debating their role in venture philanthropy. So, the idea being that same organization, Louise, that you might describe, instead of sustaining a project, they might say, you know what, we have this idea. And we think that if we can introduce a program that'll do this, that it'll give us this sort of return, and then it'll fund itself the next go around. And there are chapters who are of both sides of the fence. We're not doing it because it's too risky. If it fails, it fails. There are other chapters who are saying, why can't we be venture philanthropists? We could vote to say, okay, let's fund this experiment. And it's a success if at the end you know the answer. Either it worked and that's great, or it didn't work. So now we can double down on something that might be more effective.
Mm.
Now, your members have to have the risk, have to have the stomach for that. But
Yeah.
okay, sorry, we're almost to the top of the hour. And Evelyn, are you still here?
I am.
Oh, there you are. I was like, I can't find you all of a sudden. Evelyn sent me an email shortly before this call and wanted to share some of the things that her chapter is doing that might be helpful for all of us. So thank you, Evelyn, and please take it away.
So last year we had 2 people underwrite Wendy's book, and we gave it to potential members because what is a better tool to use than Wendy's own words about why she created this organization? So this year we're taking it a step further, and we're going to have I Make an Impact book club nights. And so either we will supply the books with a maximum. We've already had 2 people come on board and we have 120 books underwritten. Or the host can order them and have them sent directly to the person's house, or the attendees can order them. And then when everybody gets together, one of our other members is going to, who is a facilitator, is going to draft questions, and we can all use the same questions at these I Make an Impact book club nights. So I just wanted to share that because I think it's a great opportunity to really share Wendy's story, and
Yes.
and so that people understand why they should get involved with this organization. So instead of just doing the I Make an Impact parties, we're going to move them to I Make, if they want to host that. I talked to someone two people the other day. One wants to host just a regular party, and one wants to host the book club party. So just a thought that takes it further.
So, thank you. And to be clear, 100% of any profit that comes from the sale of the book comes to Impact 100 Global. I do not get a penny of it personally. The book was created as an asset for you all to use. And so I thank you, Evelyn. I have participated in in-person book clubs at chapters, as well as virtual book clubs with chapters. And so should you decide to do that, and Evelyn didn't say, or I didn't say, Evelyn's with Sacramento, in case you're wondering which chapter. There, Evelyn, are you still giving all of your members a book?
No, we're doing potential members or the book club this year. The advertising for these members, the sponsorship package includes they get to create a bookmark which has your signature and a quote on one side with their logo on the other, and they're also paying for it. I just got a text from Dr. Janice who says the bookmarks are in. Come get them.
Well, that is very good. Little Traverse Bay gives every member a book when they join. And they are a launching chapter. So so just letting you know. You can buy them at a discount on Porchlight books, or you can buy them on Amazon.
I just checked, and Porchlight was actually more expensive than Amazon right now.
Oh, okay. So yeah, it can change.
Yes, it can. So anyway, and they're underwriting the cost of the bookmark, but it gives them that advertising. So I think that's kind of fun.
Yeah, very good. Any other thoughts for the good of the group? Questions?
Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Now we do have a chapter chat in June. So then we're going to take a little break. So I hope to see many of you in June. If there are any questions I missed, or if there's anything that comes up in between, you know how to reach me. So please do reach out. But thank you, and thanks for hanging in there. This has been an action-packed chapter chat, as they often are. And I am looking forward to seeing you all soon. And hopefully I'll also see you at the conference in real life, where we can hug and everything. All right, y'all. Thank you. And have a great day.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Wendy.
Wendy.
Good. Thank you.
Bye-bye.